When we see US men's national team players heading back to MLS, we get some 2017 PTSD, when the United States failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup, and at the time, many did blame MLS for bringing back from Europe many of our key players. That led to many believing they dropped the level once they came back to Major League Soccer. Now fast forward to 2025 and the United States has more players playing in Europe than ever. Some are doing great, others are doing okay, and then we have a few that flopped, which is perfectly normal and it's perfectly fine. The more you send, the more flops you will have. That's normal. Regardless, it's inevitable that one day they will all, or most of them, will come back to MLS. Maybe towards the end of their careers, and some during their prime. MLS has money, and the United States is home. So which US men's national team players that will be in the 2026 World Cup roster, or could be in the 2026 roster, will come back to MLS right after the World Cup? And let me tell you, the names I'm going to mention here today are pretty much all in their prime. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today I want to dive into 3 players that are, I guess, in their prime right now and could be important in the 2026 World Cup, or could be in the roster. I want to give you 3 names that will come back to MLS right after the World Cup in the summer of 2026. Now, keep in mind the World Cup is coming to the United States in 2026, and I think we're going to see MLS ramp up their investment a bit more. I think they're not going to create Pro Rel, but they will try to sign some big names, more big names, right? They got Messi and many others, but I think they're going to try to sign a few Americans that will play the World Cup, which is something the league lacks, right? Good American players. The best players in Major League Soccer are not American. So with that said, let me know in the comment section down below. Out of the players that could be in the 2026 World Cup for the United States, give me 3 names that you believe will be in MLS next summer and tell me why. I'll let you know mine very soon. And this video is brought to you by Sorare and yourself. And you know why yourself? Because you can hit the like button right now and help the channel a lot. And don't forget, your comment down below is a great way to rig the YouTube algorithm. All right, let's roll the intro and start the episode. Okay, player number 1, and this is an interesting one because this is a player that can most certainly still play in a top 5 league for at least a few more seasons, and by at least a few more, I mean probably 4 or 5, maybe more. But at the same time, we have a bunch of people, not just myself, pretty certain that he will be back in MLS next summer. And that player is Weston McKennie, that currently plays at the time of this recording with Juventus. So let me explain why I think Weston will be back in MLS, because I made it clear he can easily play in the top 5 league next season, probably the season after, and a few others. So why would he come back to MLS right now? Now, look, MLS will want to invest in Americans to try to build off the 2026 World Cup hype, and I already mentioned that before. McKennie is expected to be a key player for the United States during the tournament, which makes him more attractive. And at the time of this recording, McKennie is a backup for Juventus. He does play, he gets minutes almost every game, but he's no longer a key player for them. He's no longer a starter, and it's pretty much certain that he will leave Juventus either halfway through this season or towards the end. I also can't really give you names, but a friend of mine, a friend of the channel that we know here, DM'd me on X, and he told me that he asked Weston, I believe when we played the game against Ecuador, that was in Austin, he asked Weston McKennie if he was going to leave Juventus this season, to which McKennie replied, yes. Now, if you think I'm full of crap, so be it. This is a true story. I did not make this up, I swear. I know I make up a lot of stories, but I did not make this one up. Now, McKennie never said which team or where he will go. He just said he will leave Juventus. Unless the dude lied to me. Then it could be a fake story, but I don't think he did. Also, keep in mind at the time of this recording, McKennie has not renewed his contract with Juventus, which expires in the summer of 2026. So technically, he could already sign with an MLS team in January as a free agent. Now, he wouldn't make the move till the summer. It would be a pre-contract. But again, Weston McKennie, for free, a free agent, no transfer fee, it sounds like a no-brainer, and that would be one way for MLS to sign a key U.S. men's national team player pretty much during the World Cup, right? They could announce it during or even before the 2026 World Cup. And McKennie currently makes somewhere around $4 to $5 million per year while playing for Juventus. And it's a lot of money, but MLS teams can easily cover that on a DP contract, a designated player contract. I mean, Walker Zimmerman makes over $3 million a year playing for Nashville. So you're telling me an MLS team cannot offer McKennie $6 million? Now, which team would Weston McKennie go to if he headed back to MLS? It depends on, obviously, which one has a DP spot open. Like, I would say Dallas, since that's where he came from, right? He was an academy player for FC Dallas. But as far as I know, Chicago does have a DP spot open. So maybe Greg Berhalter would want Weston McKennie, right? He was one of his favorites with the U.S. men's national team. I think LAFC also has a DP spot open. That would be an attractive team as well. And, you know, a while back, there were strong rumors that Cincinnati wanted McKennie. And it also seemed that McKennie's camp did want to hold talks. So they were interested in that move as well. I do also want to add one thing that Matteo Moretto, a very reliable, I believe, Italian journalist, had to say about Weston McKennie recently. And keep in mind that where there is smoke, there's always fire, or there's a guy smoking, right? One or another. Usually it's just a guy smoking. There's not fires happening like all the time, just a few times. So this journalist, he's a big journalist in Europe, he said the following on YouTube in early October. This is what he said. There are several MLS teams who are continuing to call Weston McKennie, and McKennie is definitely open to a possible return to the United States, but also for a personal reason. We don't know what the personal reason is, but if he said that, as I said, where there's smoke, there's fire, McKennie seems to want to come back to the United States. And I'm not judging. I mean, I prefer McKennie to stay in the top 5 league, but I get it, right? It's home. You'd want to be in the US. And he went on to say, so we'll see if they can materialize it. But there is a real possibility that McKennie could eventually leave Europe starting next season, which would be in the summer of 2026. McKennie's contract with Juventus expires in June of 2026. So once again, I think McKennie next summer will be back in MLS. And if he's back in MLS, let me know in the comment section down below which team is he going to play for. I'm not really for it. I think McKennie still has gas in his tank and can still play in the best, in the top 5 league, right? The best leagues in Europe, but I think it's inevitable. Now, before we continue, a quick word from the sponsor of this video, SoRare. Now, keep in mind, I tried to get a Weston McKennie card on SoRare, and I couldn't find it. It wasn't for sale. But if he goes to Major League Soccer, it will be for sale. And I think McKennie will be very productive in MLS, so it might be a card worth purchasing. And if you are new to SoRare, you can sign up with the link in the description of this video. You will get a special offer of 50% off your first few purchases, valid on purchases up to $300, which means if you use the link and you never bought a card before, you will get 50% back of what you spent up to $300. It's essentially a $150 welcome bonus. Okay, player number 2, and hopefully by now you have already dropped a like in this video and a comment in the comment section to rig the YouTube algorithm for me. Okay, thank you very much. Player number 2 is Brenden Aaronson, that at the time of this recording, he's a Leeds United player. Okay, this one's tricky because Aaronson's contract goes till the summer of 2027, but I think he could leave Leeds earlier than that. Let me explain. So first and foremost, at this point, Leeds knows they ain't getting back the $30 million fee that they paid for Brenden Aaronson. In top 5 leagues, he has proven to be serviceable, but mostly ineffective. No one's paying that amount for him or even close to it. Now, you may be saying, some MLS team will have to pay a transfer fee for him. And yes, that is true. But they're not going to have to pay $30 million. I kind of think that Leeds would probably accept somewhere between $10 to $15 million for Brenden next summer, especially because his contract expires in the summer of 2027. It'll be the last year of his contract, so they might want to cut their losses. $10 to $15 million is what I think they would want, and that's doable. Think about it for a second. The Rapids paid $8 million for Paxton Aaronson. Do we really think no MLS team would be willing to pay $10, $12, $15 million for Brenden Aaronson? That is much more proven at a higher level, more marketable because he might actually be in the World Cup, unlike Paxton Aaronson. I don't know. I think they would. Plus, apparently Brenden and Paxton did talk before Paxton Aaronson moved back to MLS when he left Europe. He left the Bundesliga. He was going to play for Eintracht Frankfurt, and he went to the Colorado Rapids. They're brothers, and I'm not saying Brenden approved it, but he very likely had no issues with it, considering the fact that his younger brother took that step. He will also be in the last year of his contract with Leeds, as I said, so I can totally see them wanting to sell him and cut their losses. And I think the only teams that would be willing to pay 10 to 15 million for Brenden Aaronson are MLS teams. I don't think any EFL championship side would. Premier League, Bundesliga, I just don't think they would. Now, will Brenden Aaronson be in the 2026 World Cup roster? I think it's very possible. Will he play in the World Cup? That's uncertain. But making the roster, I would argue right now, based on the data we have, we made a whole video trying to predict Pochettino's roster. We released that earlier this week. And I think it's more likely that Brenden will be in the roster rather than not being in the roster. And you know what? As long as Philly has a DP spot open, they would be the front runners to sign him. And if it's Philly, if Philadelphia does sign Brenden Aaronson, he would be a record signing because they never paid more than 3.5 million euros for a player. I doubt Leeds would sell Brenden for less than that, and I think many teams would be willing to pay at least twice of that amount to get him. But we'll see. If he comes back to MLS, it could also very well not be Philly that signs him. Now, on SoRare, Brenden Aaronson's card right now is less than $2, which is very cheap, like extremely cheap. That's because he's very ineffective in the Premier League. Now, if he comes to MLS, I might actually buy his card if it's not too expensive, right? I probably won't pay $150 or $100. But if he comes to MLS, buying his card on SoRare might not be a bad deal. Because in Major League Soccer, I think Aaronson will be very effective. I wouldn't be surprised if he got like 10, 15 goals and assists each, right? 20 goal contributions in a season. I think it's doable. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Will Aaronson be back in MLS next summer? And if he does, how many goal contributions would he get if he was playing in Major League Soccer? All right, last but not least, player number 3. And his name might surprise you actually, or maybe not, probably not, is Josh Sargent from Norwich, at the time of this recording, of course. So his contract runs till the summer of 2028, which means MLS would have to pay a fee if they want to sign him, okay? And it'll probably be a pricey one. Now, hear me out, because based on what Tom Bogert reported in the summer of 2024, a very reliable MLS journalist, Sargent pretty much agreed to personal terms with Cincinnati, and they made a big offer. But you know what? Let me read to you what Tom Bogert reported word for word. Cincinnati bids somewhere in the region of $20 million for Sargent, sources say. But Norwich was demanding like around $25 million. I don't know what's crazier, paying $20 million for Josh Sargent or rejecting $20 million for Josh Sargent. And understand, I rate Sargent, and I actually had higher hopes for him with the national team, but it's pretty crazy that Cincinnati was willing to pay $20 million for him and Norwich rejected it. Which actually, from a Norwich perspective, I kind of get it because he does score a lot in the championship, but still, that's a lot of money for Sargent. But he goes on to say that Norwich would not accept the $20 million, blah, blah, blah. They wanted 25, and that's it. Now, an agreement on personal terms wouldn't have been an issue, with the player comfortable with joining Cincinnati and both sides aligned on the expectations, which means Tom Bogert is essentially telling us that Sargent was 100% fine with that move. So, as I already said, an MLS franchise has offered $20 million for Sargent. I could see another one offering the same, and, you know, this time Norwich might actually bite. And to be fair, Sargent would probably do very well in MLS. He probably would get like 20 goals a season if he's fully fit, if he's fully healthy. And let's be real, Norwich ain't getting promoted this season, so they will be in the EFL Championship. Now, you may be saying, Sargent would not want to move to MLS at age 26. Well, I disagree. One is for the reason I just gave you. He literally kind of agreed to terms with Cincinnati. The problem was Norwich didn't agree with Cincinnati. So right there, we can cut the crap. Sargent would 100% be willing to come to MLS at age 26. But there are more reasons to that than just that one. I have more reasons to believe that he would. Okay, so Tom Bogart's report was clear. Sargent was willing to join Cincinnati. We've talked about that. Now listen, Josh Sargent also had a deal to move to the Bundesliga in the summer of 2025. He would go to Wolfsburg. He would go back to Germany. And apparently, it didn't happen because his wife and himself did not want to leave England. It seems like the Premier League or Major League Soccer would be the only two moves for Sargent. And let's be real, MLS it is. The Premier League is not really his level. He could maybe play for a lower table team, but would they be willing to pay 20 million, 25 million for Josh Sargent? I doubt it. What I'm essentially saying is he'll either go to the Premier League with Norwich getting promoted, which, as we talked about, the way the season is going, they are not getting promoted. I would be shocked if they got promoted. Or he would go to MLS. And I think next summer, he's not going to stay in the championship anymore. He will go back to Major League Soccer. Or not really back, because he never played. He'll just go to Major League Soccer. Now, is Josh Sargent going to make the World Cup roster? It's unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. He's behind Balogun, Hagi, Pepe. At this point with Pochettino, he's behind Ajiman. He might even be behind Brian White. However, that's not the point here. He is technically a U.S. men's national team player. He was there in the camp, I believe, in September, which he didn't score again. That's not news right there. And you may be wondering, where will he go if he goes to MLS? I mean, look, Cincinnati, that's an option. If they need a forward and they have a designated spot open, maybe St. Louis, that seems like a realistic one as well. I don't know. We will see. It's too far away at the time of this recording, but it'll very likely happen. Now on SoRare, I couldn't really find Josh Sargent's card for sale. However, if he goes to MLS, as long as the card is not overpriced, I'll probably get it. Because I want to say this, if Sargent is healthy, I think he will get 20 goals or more in MLS. Now, if you count goals and assists, goal contributions, if he stays fit for the entire season, I would not be surprised if he drops 30 goal contributions in MLS. Of course, it depends on what team he plays for, but the dude will score a lot of goals.
Okay, so you may be wondering, what about Gio Reyna? And I had him on my list originally, but Gladbach just signed him on a permanent transfer, so I doubt they would want to get rid of him after one season. However, if they get relegated, which I didn't think it was possible, but it definitely is, I could see Gio Reyna going to MLS next summer if Gladbach gets relegated. Okay, but I didn't really want to mention because if they're not relegated, which I think they will escape relegation, I doubt he leaves Gladbach after one season. Okay, that's all.
Okay, now before we go, there's a few honorable mentions that I want to talk about. So Christian Pulisic, would he come back to MLS right after the World Cup? No, there's absolutely no way Pulisic will be back right after the 2026 World Cup. Could he be back before the 2030 World Cup? Maybe. Perhaps after the 2028 Olympics, who knows? After the World Cup, there is no way that's happening. He's too important for Milan. They would ask an MLS team to pay like 60, 70 million euros. That's not happening. I don't think Pulisic would want to come back now as well. Ignored the injury for a second. He's having the best season of his career. Now, Kevin Paredes from Wolfsburg, he's been getting injured a lot. The minutes might tank. I could see Paredes going back to MLS. That could happen. And honestly, he might need it. The other one, Gianluca Busio. He's playing for Venezia in the Serie B, the second division of Italy, doing well for a while with them. I could see Busio getting offered a lot of money and going back to MLS. Now, Busio and Paredes will not be in the World Cup roster, so I don't know how much that matters to you, but I could see them coming back to MLS in 2026. And that's all for today, everyone. Make sure to drop a like before you go. Thank you very much, SoRare, for sponsoring this video, and that's all. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.